Hi, food friends. It's Kevin.
And I'm Ralph behind the camera as usual.
And here we are, and we're cooking again. And today, we're going to do something that is Lent-friendly and ties into an upcoming trip I have to Paris, France.
Fancy you.
That's right. So we're going to do a cheese soufflé. Okay? And soufflés, you know, a lot of people get really hung up about French cooking, and it seems complicated. And in some ways it is complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated to make. So, here's what we're going to do first. You might have a actual soufflé dish. This is not an official soufflé dish. This is one of my thrift shop Pyrex retro good old casseroles, really. But you know what? It will work. Okay, you want something with a straight side. This is about a 3/4 size. And depending on the size of soufflé you make, 2 3/4, but this will work. So what we're going to do first is we're going to butter it up. So we're going to take some butter and we're going to smear it all over the inside. Can you see this, Ralph?
Yeah.
And one thing about soufflés, butter is really a part of it. So you can't have too much butter in here.
French cooking in general is real buttery, isn't it?
Yeah. And so.
But they have a lot of red wine to cut the cholesterol.
That's right. So, all right, so we've got our butter. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. And now if you were baking a cake, we would what? Butter and flour the pan, right?
Right.
So this time what we're doing is we're buttering and cheesing the inside of the dish. See how that cheese is sticking to the casserole?
So that creates kind of a little coating for the base.
Exactly. So that will serve 2 purposes. One, it'll keep the soufflé from sticking to the side of the casserole dish, but the Parmesan cheese, of course, adds in and of itself a whole other layer.
Gotcha.
Okay? So that's what we're going to do. Now, soufflé takes sort of a
light touch?
A bechamel sauce that we start with, and then it takes egg whites and it puts the things together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my hands, we're going to come back, and we're going to get our eggs going. So basically our ingredients here, we've got milk, we've got flour, we've got some cayenne pepper, dry mustard, salt, I've got some cheese. This is cheddar, sharp. If you want it to be really authentic and super French, you could use a Gruyere cheese. And then we have our eggs, okay? So I'm going to wash my hands and then we'll come back and we'll get the eggs separated. Be right back. All right, so what we're going to do now is I've got 6 large eggs here, and we're going to separate these. A lot of people have different methods of separating eggs. Some of them kind of let the eggs ooze through their fingers. You know what I do? I use the shell, like this.
Oh, you make it look easy. I could never do that.
Sure you could. If you cracked enough eggs, you'd get the hang of it.
They're always a disaster for me, but I get shell and everything, and I guess I'm getting a little better, but that looks pretty tricky what you're doing.
I've heard some people say that eggs separate easier if they are at room temperature and not cold. And of course, we talk about this when we bake things. We like to keep our eggs at room temperature. They do perform better than ice cold. So I'm going to finish separating these eggs and then we'll come back and work on our sauce. Okay? Be right back. So we're starting our base sauce for our cheese soufflé. We're Frenching it up today.
With some music of Claudine Leger in the background.
Oh, beautifully French. What I've just melted here is a 1/2 stick or 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. Okay?
All right, that's the start.
That's the start. So we're going to make essentially a roux. So we got a 1/4 cup of butter there. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of flour.
A 1/2 stick equals a 1/4 cup?
Yeah, 1/2 stick is a 1/4 cup.
And then how much flour did you say?
A 1/4 cup.
All right.
So the butter and the flour is the same. And what we want to do is we want to just cook this.
Keep stirring.
This is essentially a roux we're making, right? We're we're combining the starch with the fat. You can see that it's bubbling, and we want to just get it nice and smooth, all that flour kind of cooked down.
Combined with the butter, it's important probably to keep stirring it, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to turn the heat down. Now I'm going to take a 1 1/4 cup of milk.
Gotcha.
This is whole milk. And we're going to take our seasonings. I got a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, and a 1/2 teaspoon of dry mustard. So let's get all that in there. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to continue to stir this until it's nice and thick. Okay? So I'm going to keep doing that. We'll come on back when this is ready. We're going to add our cheese and our egg yolks into this as soon as this is thickened up and tightened up. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
So here we are. And you can see, look how beautiful that has thickened up. Okay? I'm going to take it off the heat. And then I'm going to take our cheese.
It almost looks like a frosting.
Doesn't it?
Because it's so thick.
So we've got a cup and a half, 2 cups of cheese here.
And what kind did you use?
I use sharp cheddar. And
any other recommendations?
Gruyere would be a very traditional cheese to use here. You could use Swiss. You could use a combination of cheeses if you wanted.
So since it's a cheese souffle and it's French, French cheeses like Gruyere and other.
I mean, that's, again, that's sort of the traditional. I think that using a cheddar cheese is probably more of an American take on the cheese souffle, because we generally in this country traditionally like more the sharper and although Gruyere is sharp, but this is the kind of the orange cheese or the yellow cheese.
You like to yank it up.
That's right. And the cheese is actually only that color because they put coloring in it.
Really?
Yeah. Just like annatto or something like that. Now we're going to we separated our eggs. These are the egg yolks.
How many?
6. So we got 6 yolks and 6 whites. I'm just going to give those a quick mix. And what we're going to do is these eggs were room temperature, but we're going to temper these a little bit by putting a little of the cheese sauce in the eggs, and then a little at a time in here.
Into the sauce.
Right. You want to be careful because you don't want you don't want scrambled eggs. You know what I mean? And from the heat, the residual heat of our base sauce here, the eggs could start to cook.
But the idea is to keep it liquidy so it blends in with the other
and
stuff.
To bring it up to a high temperature in a gradual way. Okay. So we got all those egg yolks. So the egg yolks obviously add a great deal of richness to this. So we're just going to get all this mixed in. And this is essentially our base sauce. Again, it was a bechamel that was seasoned. We added our cheese, and now we've added our egg yolks.
Slowly into it. Okay.
So they're all combined. So we've got our 6 egg whites here. I'm going to add to the egg whites a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. This is really a stabilizer. It really helps the egg whites sort of develop as they get beaten and aerated. So we're going to take this up.
So it doesn't really do anything for the taste.
It has no flavor whatsoever.
Okay, it's more of a stabilizer, as you said.
Right. And when doing egg whites, there's different stages of egg whites. And sometimes you want what they call a stiff peak, and sometimes you want a soft peak. We're going for a soft peak. We want to make sure that the egg whites aren't dry. They still have a moist, soft peak. Because if we're adding air to these egg whites, you can really dry them out, but we don't want that. So this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to keep on beating until the egg whites are right where we want them, and then we'll come back and we'll get our 2 parts of our souffle put together and then into the pan. Okay? Okay. We are right where we want to be with our egg whites. So let me shut this off. Again, we're looking for a soft peak, and you can see how the peaks kind of droop over a little bit. They're still very moist. Something just to remember with egg whites, when you're separating your egg, you really need to make sure that it's separated in that you don't want any egg yolk in here.
That can ruin it?
Well, they won't stiffen because of the protein. It's something real sciencey. I can't explain it. Okay, so we have our egg whites. Now we're going to come over here and get our sauce. And so what I'm going to do first is we're going to pour a little bit of the sauce
you pour it into the
egg whites, and we're going to get that in by folding. So when we fold, this is using a spatula, right? And we're sort of turning our bowl and just lifting from the bottom and pushing over like this. If you were stirring this, you'd beat these egg whites down. We don't want to do that. We just spent all that trouble aerating, getting air into the egg whites. We don't want to take it out.
So a little bit at a time, just like you did when you put the eggs into the cream sauce.
Exactly. And you'll see it gradually change color here.
Really makes
it gets incorporated.
Makes you wonder how these French cooks came up with these.
Figured this stuff out.
Yeah, because it does seem almost more scientific than foodish.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier about French cooking, and I think other cooking too. People really see as like a really complicated process, and I don't know that it always is. I think one of the beauties of foods like the souffle is really its simplicity. There's not a lot of ingredients in here.
But it's not like what you would call peasant food.
No, I don't think so. But it certainly
not as complicated as one might think.
No, it's not. It's easier to make, say, than a beef bourguignon or something like that is also French.
Well, when you come back from Paris, I'm expecting a lot of...
yeah, I'm going to Paris in May for the first
French
time,
cooking.
And I cannot wait. I'm going to just eat and eat and eat.
Going to have to buy 2 seats on the plane on the way back.
I have to pay that fat tax. Okay, I think that's fairly well incorporated, okay?
Okay.
So here we are. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to put this in our pan.
Which you have coated with the
butter and the Parmesan.
Right.
And ideally, whatever vessel you use, you want to have it no more than 2/3 full. Because this is going to rise, like anything you make with egg whites, like a chiffon cake, right? We've done a chiffon cake, I think. Mm-hmm. If we haven't, we should.
I think you have.
It's going to rise. So there it is. Okay? Now we've preheated the oven to 375 degrees. This is going to bake for 30 to 35 minutes. Do not open the door while it's baking. Let it do its thing. Okay?
So once it's in there, don't be tempted to check on it.
So if
just set your timer.
If you got a little peekaboo window, you can look through, but we'll be back in 30 to 35 minutes with our cheese souffle right here on Cavalcade of Food. Okay, our timer just went off. It's just been a little over 30 minutes, maybe 31 minutes. Let's shut our oven off here.
Ooh, looks good from
and
here.
Here we are. Cheese souffle. Now, something you should know, that souffles do drop rather quickly as soon as the cool air starts to hit them. But isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it looks really cool. It's almost
So that's your standard cheese souffle. A little something French on this special day as we think about Lent and we think about a trip to Paris.
So meatless dishes, something to French it up, and
Yep.
some Eric Satie music in the background.
So wonderful. So there it is, cheese souffle.
Aren't we going to try to eat it?
Yeah, we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a spoon.
Should you let it cool off a lot?
It does not need to actually cool off that much. And we'll get a plate. To me, this is sort of like cheese flavored cotton candy.
Wow, that's a good way to describe it. So there's no special tricks to
No?
taking it.
There it is.
Wow, that looks.
And of course, the sides has a little bit of a crust with the Parmesan.
It's like a fluffy omelet.
It's exactly. That's the egg whites.
Did you burn your mouth?
Oh, wonderful. Okay. We're going to be eating good tonight.
You happy with it?
I'm really happy. So here we are. Cheese souffle. So make one for some people that you love. Thanks for being a part of this one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks
Au
for
revoir.
watching. Au revoir. Thanks for checking us out.